Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Millionaire by Morning podcast show. We have with us today a guest who's going to speak with us about something that's very prevalent in the work atmosphere right now, also the entrepreneur atmosphere, and that's banishing burnout and creating a healthy workplace culture. We have with us a former executive leader, now founder and CEO of an international consulting firm. Caroline Dowd Higgins is on a mission to empower leaders and organizations to redesign work culture to honor humanity and profitability. As a burnout survivor, she is committed to turning burnout into brilliance to enhance peak performance, productivity, and rediscovering the joy in your work. Caroline is a sought after keynote speaker, a certified executive coach, TEDx speaker, best-selling author of Your Career Advantage, and podcast host of Your Working Life with listeners in 34 countries. Her work empowers you to thrive in life and career because you shouldn't have to choose one over the other. Welcome to the show today, Caroline.
Thanks, Rashad. I'm delighted to be with you.
Thank you. You could be anywhere in the world and you're here with us today. So I want to show gratitude and I want to jump right into it. And normally where we start at, the first question I would like to ask is about your past. I would like to ask, do you see yourself, your current self, in the child in your earlier years? Can you compare childhood Caroline to who you are now? Was there an entrepreneurial spirit there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll take you back a little bit, Rashad, just to give you context and to give your listeners context. So I started my career as a performing artist. I sang opera for 10 years and traveled the world and loved that career. And I was always a kid that was performing. I was in all the high school shows and musicals and did a lot of regional theater growing up. But what is entrepreneurial about the performing arts world is you don't just wait for auditions, which are the interviews in the musical and theatrical world. You have to be proactive and you have to present yourself and put yourself out there. So I was always pitching and promoting and selling, if you will, what I could do to entice people to hire me. So yeah, that entrepreneurial spirit started early.
Wow. So it's been there. I love to hear those stories because we kind of, at the end of the day, I think, when everyone is done with the corporate structure, with corporate jobs, the going to school for it, at the end of the day, when you settle down and it's what you really want to do, it's normally what you were doing as a kid. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do. I think, as someone who's now a coach, and that's a question, what did you dream of when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up? And, those initial passions and values and interests are really important. And I think it's smart of you to pick at that a little bit and say, where are you now and where did it come from? But I'll share one other thing about being an entrepreneur. I worked in industry for many years and I rose to the ranks of an executive leader, a senior vice president. And I will tell you that I had to be intrapreneurial in those large organizations. So even though I wasn't a business entity on my own, I always had that side hustle. I had to think like an entrepreneur, even within an organization. So I think that skill set is incredibly important and something that all of us need to cultivate.
Definitely. And I seen that as I was looking at your biography or looking at your speaker sheet and your website, that's something that you bring to your teachings is the fact that you have to think as a entrepreneur, you have to take ownership. And I thought that was very insightful because doing that inside of the job, although your name is not on, the big lights or the signage outside, it's still a personal responsibility to kind of be your best and put your best foot forward.
You're absolutely right. And I'll tug at that a little bit and share. I also believe that it means that we need to be self-directed. We need to be willing to try and fail. we need to destigmatize failure, because let's face it, in the entrepreneurial realm, we're constantly trying new things. We're test driving, we're piloting. And I think some non-entrepreneurs tend to look for the ways that they can always play it safe. And some of the best things that ever happened to me happened because I failed, and then I failed forward and figured out how to do it better. So I think failure is a great opportunity to learn and grow.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also, I like to add to that. It's a saying that it's kind of like comparing entrepreneurship to sales. A lot of people, I know people are reluctant to say, I'm not an entrepreneur. I do better working. That's just who I am. But
Right.
it's kind of in relation of being a salesperson
Yeah.
and people saying, I'm not good at sales. I'm not a salesperson. But at the same time, they had to sell themselves to a job. They had to sell themselves to their spouse. They have to sell themselves at all times. So how do you, when people are reluctant to say, I don't want to do the entrepreneurial aspect, how do you combat that?
I really try to help them wrap their brain around what sales is, because I get it. It can have a frightening connotation to people that don't understand. But I think about it as showing your influence. We see social media influencers all over the place. And granted, they're selling a product or they're promoting a product, but we're the product. So it's like me incorporated. How can I showcase to the world what I have to offer, what value that I bring? And if I'm in a company, I still need to do that. But certainly, if I'm an entrepreneur, I need to showcase to the world why what I have to offer is valuable. And I believe, Rashad, very deeply that we can do that with humble confidence. It doesn't have to be that dark side narcissism that many people are worried about, but we need to feel comfortable talking about what we do well. It's competitive out there. And if you're not willing to influence people and show them what you have that's a return on investment, then you're not going to be a very good entrepreneur.
Right, right. Okay, well, I'm glad you segued into that because now we kind of jumped out there really fast and this conversation is rolling. So I want to ask for our customers and pre-frame it and let the people know, people that's meeting you for the first time, how do you describe what you do today and how you specifically serve?
Yeah, I boiled it down to something really simple that I want people to be able to remember. I empower people to do their best work and live their best life, because nobody wants just one or the other. They want to be able to do it at the same time.
Okay. All right. So by living the best life, people living their best life, what person are you specifically speaking to? Are these executives that are normally working 60-hour weeks? Are these tech bros that pretty much don't get any sleep?
Right.
What is your average everyday avatar?
Yeah, so let me pull a little bit on the thread of the tech bros that might be working around the clock, and they've made that look really sexy and really attractive. But there's nothing sexy about working 90 hours a week and being sleep deprived and exhausted because you can't do your best work. So I believe that everybody should have an opportunity to do their very best work and work hard. But it's the overworking and the over expectation that leads to burnout. A lot of other things lead to burnout as well, but I'll give you a personal example. So when I was in the height of what I call my corporate executive role, and this wasn't too long ago, right? This was just after the pandemic and we sort of got back to work from the virtual world. That's when I stepped off the train because I was working 90 hours a week. And that
Wow.
was crazy. That just wasn't sustainable. And in truth, Rashad, I wasn't doing my very best work. I was doing a lot of work, but I wasn't doing top quality work. So I would rather have a more normal schedule, working even 40 hours a week felt like part-time for me. I mean, it was glorious, and do top quality work consistently than constantly trying to catch up or doing the bare minimum because the plate was piled so high.
Yeah, so I've heard about that. There's a difference between being at work and being productive at work.
Exactly. Exactly. And our brains need the break. I often say work in 90-minute sprints. Work for 90 minutes, then get up and walk around or go outside or do something fun, even if it's for 2 minutes, just to reboot your brain and your central nervous system, so that break empowers you to have energy throughout the day. Our bodies have a natural circadian rhythm. And even though we might be there physically, if we're exhausted, we're not able to do our best work. And I think that's the real detriment and danger of burnout. Not only the physical debilitation and the mental exhaustion, it's not a good business case because people aren't bringing their best to the table because they simply can't do it all. And I think we need to stop blaming and shaming people, saying you're not doing enough. We need to normalize, whatever the hours are, whether it's a 40-hour work week, whatever that looks like, so people can do extraordinary work.
Right, right. I hear a lot about hustle culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so they try to make it seem cool.
They
You
do.
know?
They do. And again, I don't want to vilify, the tech industry, but in Silicon Valley, hustle culture as a hashtag hustle culture is a thing. I mean, they take great pride and joy in that. And, again, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I mean, Elon Musk used to talk about how he never slept, or when he did, he might catch an hour in the office. That's not something to promote and celebrate, because he's probably not doing his best work. I don't want to pick on Elon Musk, right? But I'm just giving you an example of someone whose name is recognizable for so many reasons. So I think if we invest in our well-being, and I have this concept, the wellness advantage, people that are healthy and focused and have that creative space to do their best work are healthier in their life overall, but they're also doing better and more extraordinary work. That's a return on investment.
Not only is it a return on investment, it's a return on your health, it's a return on your family. Are
Absolutely.
these things that as far as coaching, are these things that you have to paint pictures of so people
Yeah.
can actually see?
Yeah, because there is, and I was this person, so I'll tell you from personal experience, I took great pride in being the overachiever. So I was the Energizer Bunny, going, and I felt this pride about being the last one to leave the office or to be the first one in. Now, admittedly, that was my own self-sabotaging, right? And when I reframed it and said, I want to be a high achiever, I want to do extraordinary work, and then I want to rest and recuperate and recharge and enjoy my family and enjoy playtime away from work, my quality of work skyrocketed, and so did my health. The myth with burnout is that working harder and longer hours leads to better work, and it just doesn't.
Right, right. Have you heard of a guy by the name of Myron Gaines?
No, tell me.
So he's a coach, he's a marketing coach. He works closely with Russell Brunson, who invented ClickFunnels. And so he's one of his spokespersons.
Mhm.
And he has a message. And his message is, he used to be a trash man. He started being a trash man, then he wrote a book. And his message is, anyone who writes a book, that gets you in the doors for other things. But he told about his story and how he used to be a mechanic. He used to be a trash man. He just worked and worked and worked.
Mhm.
And eventually he met up with Russell Brunson, who taught him how to do the software and the sales funnels,
Yeah.
things of that nature. So now he realized he could work, like you say, he could take away all of the work, pulling out motors and doing hard work for hourly wages, and a lot of it for more money, but there's not a really big stretch of money there.
Yeah.
But if he take his mind and relaxes his mind and think of a very intriguing concept, he can charge a very intriguing price for it
Yeah.
and spend more time on the golf course just by selling this intriguing product or service.
Smart move. Yeah, smart move. And I think another thing that people don't think about with burnout, even the overachievers like I used to be, and again, now I'm happy to be a high achiever and my quality is better. We start to resent being in the office all the time, and we
Right.
start to get frustrated and emotionally distraught. Nobody can work that way perpetually around the clock, right? So we're recording this during Olympic season, Winter Olympics. So you think about those elite athletes, whether Olympians or they're professional sports people or they're aspiring to be professional sports people, they know the value of rest. You know, if you
Right.
run a marathon on Monday, you're going to rest on Tuesday. You better believe those guys rested after the Super Bowl on Monday because they were banged up and their bodies needed to recalibrate. Now they have off season now where they're going to do some training and conditioning and practice until the season starts again. But smart athletes know that their body is their instrument. And it's the same way for the rest of us. We're just playing a different sport.
Yes, I like that. I like that. It's the same way. It's just a different sport.
Yep.
Wow, man. And the mind is so powerful.
Yeah.
What does it look like to work with you, Caroline? You don't, no. Hold on. Wait a minute before I ask that question. What was the transition like for you? What was that far as mindset? Were you afraid when you left your, cushy job and transitioned to coaching? What was that like for you?
Yeah. So Rashad, I'm going to be really candid and vulnerable with you because that's how I roll and that's how I've learned. I was scared because I had solid income. I had great benefits, good healthcare, retirement, the whole 9 yards. And I thought this kind of the golden handcuffs, right? This is really good. How can I let this go? And how long is it going to take me to replicate that income? So the fear was real. And I have a coach. I am a coach and I work with a coach because I believe in the process so seriously. And my coach helped me work through those fears. And the whole reality was I could always go back to another job. Maybe not that job, but I could go back and find another career in an organization. So why not give this a try? And it was a risk. It was a calculated risk. I did a lot of prep work to get there. I didn't just flip the switch haphazardly. I really planned. I set myself up for success, but I was willing to take a leap. And I was also willing to set my expectations of, let's think of this as an opportunity to build. But I will tell you, I was pleasantly surprised because one, the business is there and I'm hungry and I'm the kind of person that is going to cultivate that business. And I diversified my offerings. So I do coaching, executive coaching for leaders. I do team trainings in organizations, and I also do public speaking. And like you, I have a podcast. So I've got a lot of different ways to generate revenue. I've written books, they generate revenue. And I realized it was worth it to me to take that risk because I was happier and healthier. I am happier and healthier than I've ever been. And that risk was the best return on investment that I ever made.
And it's easy for you to teach that, right? It's easy. You've done it. So
it's easy in that I've done it. So I've got the experience. But I think what's relatable, I really help people understand easy is relative, right? Intellectually, it was easy. The work is hard. We all have to put the work. You know that too, right? And I don't think most people are afraid of hard work. But I try to normalize taking a risk and knowing that it's okay to fail. If it doesn't work, you pivot and you figure out how to make it better, right? A roadblock is not a permanent obstacle. Do you tunnel under? Do you jump over it? Do you jump around it? There are ways to get through those obstacles. And I think that's what being an entrepreneur is all about.
Awesome. Okay, so now for the next question. What does it look like to work with Caroline Dowd Higgins?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. I appreciate that. So like I said, my business has 3 main verticals. So the coaching, and I do a lot of work with leaders who are either trying to up their game and really honor that wellness and that peak performance, creating good cultures where people can do their best work. Sometimes I'm working with a leader's team and I'm going in helping them working on executive presence or better communication or conflict resolution, or change, because Rashad, the world is full of change and that's never going to stop. Change is constant. And then of course, this work in the burnout space to say, how do we flip burnout, banish burnout, and think about high quality peak performance that honors your well-being. And of course, I'm also on the speaking circuit and love that. I've got performance in my background and I'm singing a different song, telling people all about how they can do their best work and live their best lives. And I'm very practical. I give action steps and resources. So when you hear me, whether I'm working with you in a coaching capacity or you hear me doing a keynote, you're going to leave with very specific action steps.
That's great. I was going to ask you on a scale from 1 to 10, how did you like public speaking?
Oh, I love it. Like 20. Like that's my favorite. Yeah, I absolutely love it. And I'll tell you why. Not only because, when I'm coaching, it's one-on-one, and that's beautiful transformation with an individual. But when you're speaking to a room of thousands of people, it's lovely to be able to scale that transformation. So for me, it's not so much about just me being on stage, but being in service of all of those people is really powerful. So it's a way to scale the message to a much bigger audience. So that's the reward for me.
Right. Yes, definitely. That's one to many instead of one to one. Yes.
I will say also, some of those people that sat in that audience might circle back and say, hey, can we do some one-on-one coaching? Absolutely. So that's the beauty of speaking. You also are in front of an audience, and you're empowering them with your research and your information and your strategies and your techniques. I'm not selling from the stage. That would be inappropriate. But I hope that I'm sharing enough insight and expertise that they're curious and then reach out and we can continue that conversation.
Right. Okay. So if someone approaches you about coaching and applies your program successfully over the next 12 months, what could their life look like after?
Yeah, coaching for me is very customized. So start, Rashad, with what I call a discovery call, and that's a free opportunity to see if we're a good fit. Coaching is very personal. I mentioned I'm a coach as well. In addition to being a coach, I have a coach. So it's a personal decision. So I never want someone to make that decision without really thinking about, are we a good fit? Can we work together? And that discovery call is a way to check that out. So we work on particular goals that are relevant to each client. Maybe someone's looking for a promotion. Maybe they're doing a pivot and they're switching industries. Or as I said, maybe they're a leader and they need to up their game, or they need to get more strategic and think about how to meet company goals. Or maybe they're an entrepreneur and they're trying to figure out how to break into that business that they're dreaming about.
Okay. All right. Well, I have a specific question to ask you. What do you see for yourself, whether it's personal or business-wise, in the next 5 years?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, I'll tell you, it was the best decision I ever made to break off and have my own consulting company. I love it. I have a really good boss. She's very nice and she's very supportive. That would be me. But I will tell you, what I love about this is the power that I have, but the autonomy as well, and the creativity. Those are really important values to me. I also have a bench of contractors that I work when I have large projects that I need to scale. So for me, it is continuing to live a healthy and vibrant life that honors my career and provides me the opportunity to do great work and make transformation happen, empower people to do what they really want to do. That's the great joy for me, empowering people to do their best work and have a great life, because you shouldn't have to choose one over the other.
Right. I can agree. So if someone does want to work with you, they're listening right now and they decide they want to follow you or work with you, what's the best way to get in contact?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. The best place is my website, which is CarolineDowdHiggins.com. And I saw that you had it on the scroll there. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I put a lot of free content out into the world. So I would say start with the website. You've got my books, my podcasts, my blogs, information about speaking and coaching and training. That's really the mothership where everything is. However, I would encourage people to connect on LinkedIn. I'd love to be part of your network and see how I can support you.
Are you very active on LinkedIn?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I'll say this with humble confidence. I was named a top leadership development expert by LinkedIn because I put so much content out there. And as a certified coach, that is an area that I really focus on. So yes, I love LinkedIn, and it's been a great tool for me to connect with other people and also share my resources.
That's so great. That's what you're doing, the work that you are doing. I commend you on. I love this podcast because I meet so many people that are empowering others.
Yeah.
And I feel like if I can be a cog in that wheel and kind of help the word to expand and continue to move and continue to grow and have people like you on my podcast that can just kind of pass the word off to others, and then others will pick up and empower others. That's a beautiful thing. And I want to thank you for coming on this show today and sharing that.
Well, Rashad, thank you. And I'm so impressed with what you do. You're lifting other people up, and I'm deeply grateful.
Thank you. Thank you. And to anyone that's out there listening, I want you to continue to live by the motto. Remember the motto: keep making moves, make money, and make meaningful memories. Until next time,